G'day, welcome back to the channel and some more news about drones, model aircraft, all the things that we like to fly but are finding increasingly hard to fly, at least legally. Now, I want to talk about the FAA first up because way back in 2021, here's an article from the Washington Post dated June 23rd, 2021, and it's headlined, FAA Committee Recommends Shifting to Gender-Neutral Language. Members of the Drone Advisory Committee said the change could improve safety. I don't know how, and diversity in the industry. Now, I've noticed something in the FAA. They've gone overboard. Just about every presentation is by a minority, someone from a minority group. I've got nothing against that. I mean, it's great. But I think they've sort of, the pendulum swung a little farther over, they're just trying too hard. So they're putting minorities right up front and central. So they're not representing in a proportionate way the actual composition of the population. But that's fine. That's a choice they've made. But here's something I think is a little bit strange, because it says an advisory committee said Wednesday that the Federal Aviation Administration should replace words and phrases such as cockpit, unmanned aviation, and man-made with gender-neutral hang on. They're suggesting that cockpit is not gender-neutral. How do they work that out? What part of the word cockpit would have a gender associated? Oh, God, these people. Anyway, let me read again. An advisory committee said Wednesday that the Federal Aviation Administration should replace the words and phrases such as cockpit, unmanned aviation, and man-made with gender-neutral terms such as flight deck, uncrewed aviation, and machine-made, part of an effort to create a more welcoming environment, because we know safety is all about feeling welcome, don't we? Well, I'm going to take you now to a podcast that the FAA, where is it? I've got to find it. Hang on. Here we go. Podcast, this one here. Podcast SN2 episode 11, I bought a drone, now what? Now, this was published 3 days ago, and it is currently, I don't know. Anyway, it's the 11th of August here in New Zealand. So this was published on the 8th of August New Zealand time, probably the 7th of August US time, because we're a day ahead here in this part of the world. Anyway, so it's only a few days ago they published this podcast, which is I bought a drone, now what? And this is a couple of FAA employees. So both the people in this discussion are FAA employees, and of course they're women, because we're pushing out there, we're being inclusive. And so, as I said, in this article here, it says that the words unmanned aviation should be replaced with uncrewed aviation. And remember, this initiative on the part of the FAA started, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So this has been in place for 2 years. They've spent an inordinate amount of money trying to gender neutralize all their nomenclature, all the terminology, all the phrases. They've rewritten all sorts of stuff to make things inclusive and gender neutral. That's fine. I've got nothing against that, as I say. But let's have a listen to what two women from the FAA say in this podcast.
So there's a section of the large Federal Aviation Administration website dedicated just to UAS stuff.
Awesome. And UAS is unmanned aircraft systems, right?
Yes, I was just thinking that. So there
You can't make this up. You really can't make this up. After all that expenditure, all that training, all that inclusiveness training, two women from the FAA still call UAS unmanned aerial systems. That typifies bureaucracies. They're going beyond the necessary to make a point, but it's all pointless because unmanned will always be unmanned. A cockpit is not a gender-specific term, and unmanned, it's mankind. It's not man as in male, it's mankind. So people are not as stupid as the idiots that have decided to do all this gender neutralization. Even women acknowledge that unmanned is not a gender-specific term. They refuse to follow the FAA's guidelines. Even their own employees are saying, we don't want a bean of it. Oh, my God. So this is the state of disarray within the halls of our regulators. It is unbelievable. Now, let's take another listen to another part of this thing, because this, I don't know, the intention was good, but the implementation is poor. As I say, these are two women from the FAA talking about, what do you do? I've just bought a drone. What do I do now? Listen to this.
The waiting. I actually bought a model aircraft a couple of years ago before I worked here. And I got so excited when it came. I took it out of the box and I wanted to fly it right away. And I immediately crashed it into a tree. So don't do that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So learn how it works. And then as you're looking through the requirements for the FAA requirements for operating safely, you'll find things like you're required to have an airspace authorization. And this is
No, only if you're flying in controlled airspace. This woman says you need an airspace authorization. No, if it's Class G, you don't need one. Now, there's the Lance app where you can use to get clearance to fly in controlled airspace. But vast tracts of the country are Class G, uncontrolled. You don't need any authorization to fly. As long as it's not in a no-fly zone or a TFR, you don't need any authorization. You go and fly. It's Class G. Anyone can fly. There's misinformation in this video, and I don't think that's right. If you're going to be presenting a video, you need to present the facts objectively and clearly and without bias and prejudice. This is trying to get everybody to use the Lance system to get authorization when they don't need to. It's not reasonable. And now we get to the subject of registration. I think everybody in the USA knows you don't have to register your drone if it's used purely for recreational purposes and it weighs less than 250 grams. But what does the FAA have to say in this informational podcast?
The second thing you're going to do is you're going to receive your drone and you should open up and learn how it works. And while your batteries are charging, you can do the third most important thing, which is to register. Almost all drones are required to be registered with the FAA unless there's a very narrow exception for drones that are flown just for fun, which in this case, it sounds like you're not because you're adding it onto your business, it sounds like. Or maybe maybe I misunderstood the question. If you just like to take pictures and you want to take pictures with a drone, you have to register it. So you would go to the FAA's drone zone, and the easiest thing to do is just Google it and register your UAS. And while you're in there, you'll be introduced to some of the basic.
So she said there's a very narrow exception. But no, it's quite a broad exception because like the DJI minis, most of them are sub 250. There's a lot of sub 250 craft now. So it's not a very narrow, it's a very clear and it's actually quite a broad exception, but it's been glossed over. Oh, no. You're going to use this on your socials or in your business, you'll need to register, which is, according to the FAA, true. But recreational users, you don't have to register a DJI mini if it's 249 grams. You don't have to. But the FAA seems to be ignoring the freedoms. They're glossing over the freedoms that flyers still have. The freedom to fly in Class G airspace without specific authorization. The freedom to fly a sub 250 gram drone recreationally without the need to register it. This is not good public relations. It's not honest. It's disingenuous. It's trying to make people think that there's a lot more obligation than there is. They're trying to remove the freedoms by stealth, by simply sidelining, not mentioning or glossing over those freedoms, focusing on you should register, you should get airspace clearance, without clearly defining that sometimes these things are just not necessary. I don't think that is very fair. That seems to be bureaucracy and skullduggery. I honestly think it's skullduggery. That's my honest opinion, but you may disagree. If you do disagree, go down there to My Man Parts and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Here's something else I spied, which air taxis, eVTOLs, advanced air mobility, all these things, these electric powered vertical takeoff things are going to be filling the skies and carrying people around from place to place. Look at this one. This is just typical. Vertical silent on possible impact of eVTOL aircraft prototype flight test crash on service entry timeline. Yeah, they crashed one. It looks broken. It's very broken. This is one of the problems that we face with this thing. It's just not safe at this stage. We're not going to see these things filling our skies for quite some time to come. And if you want to know why, you only have to look at this article here from the BBC, which asks the very important question, will electric flying taxis live up to their promise? I think we all know the answer to that, but let's find out what the answer to that is. Well, look, down here it says, even those who are building these things acknowledge batteries remain the biggest problem. They remain heavy and expensive, which curtails the range and limits the cost and advantages of eVTOL aircraft over helicopters, trains, and cars. The Volocity has a range of 22 miles, which is enough for short city hops, but is not very far compared to the range of a helicopter. And Mr. Bauer acknowledges the challenge. What is hindering us right now is the battery technology, which all the peers are right now working on. So he's basically saying it's not viable, it's not practical with the batteries we've got, which is pretty obvious. I mean, 22 range mile. Imagine that. You can only fly for 22 miles before you have to recharge. And recharging is going to take over an hour to recharge the batteries. So you were talking about a 5 or 6 minute flight and then an hour on the ground. That's not how you make money out of any aircraft. Aircraft do not make money while they're sitting on the ground. And you notice this with airliners. They bring them in, they turn them around really quick and get them out. All commercially viable aviation operations involve keeping the aircraft in the air for as much of the time as possible. So if you're going to be spending 80, 90, 95% of your time recharging, you're not going to make money out of that aircraft. There's no way they're going to make money. And this thing here, the Lilium, there was a very good technical breakdown of the Lilium, and even they basically admit these aren't going to be viable until we get a new generation of batteries. So if we look at history, we started off with lead acid batteries, and they were, turn of the century, they were basically the best batteries we could have. Then we had nickel cadmium batteries, came out in the 1950s, I think. And then there was a big gap up until the late 1970s, I think, when nickel metal hydride batteries came in. So 20 years there. And then there was another more than 20 years from the 70s to the early 2000s when lithium ion batteries came in. So this huge battery technology does not advance very quickly. There's decades between major advances in battery technology. So lithium ions came in around about practically about 2008, 2009, 2010. So it's probably not going to be until about 2035 till we see a new generation of battery tech based on previous history, which means they're building aircraft today that will not be practical for another 10, 15 years' time. So why are we creating regulations for a future that is still 15 years away? Why are we regulating drones and all that sort of stuff, model aircraft, as if the skies were already filled with these eVTOL air taxis? It's just because that's not going to happen for another 10, 15 years. It makes no sense. You don't build a motorway 15 years ahead of the invention of the motor car. It just didn't happen. So, yeah, these are the problems that we are facing at the moment. As if to prove the point that this drone delivery also is a complete bust, Amazon Prime Air loses 2 key operations leaders as drone delivery struggles continue. Remember, back in, when was it, 2000 something or other, it might say it in here somewhere. Here we go. The departures come at a critical juncture for Prime Air, which has struggled to transition into a fully operational service since Amazon founder Jeff Bezos predicted in 2013. Now that is 10 years ago. He said that within 5 years, Amazon would deliver by drone packages weighing 5 pounds or less to customers' doorsteps. So he said it was within 5 years. It's been 10 years and we still don't see it because it's a bust. Just like with the air taxis, it's not economically viable. And even if you look ahead, I mean, look at all the storms, the heat waves, the way that climate is affecting things these days, and it's getting worse on an annual basis. These delivery drones can't fly in hurricanes and storms and pouring rain. They probably can't fly very well in extremely high temperatures because batteries, motors, electronics don't like heat. Heat reduces the density of the air, therefore you'd get less range and less performance out of a drone. This is just a bust, and the fact that these two people left, is an indicator. But the funny thing is that they left to join an air taxi company. It looks like stupid people, in my honest opinion, it looks like stupid people proliferate amongst the companies that are doing or claiming to be able to do drone delivery and air taxis. And when they find that their particular operation is a bust, they move to another one that's also going to be a bust. It's crazy, these people. But these are the people that the regulators are listening to. Look at all the boards, the committees that are there to guide the regulators. They're all filled with people from Amazon and Google and Airbus and Boeing who are pushing these things, these very things, these drone deliveries and these automated air taxis. They're saying these are the future. And that's why the rules are being changed as they are, because these people are promising things that they will not be able to deliver in the foreseeable future. So we pay the price. As a hobby, we pay the price for this. It's crazy. And if you live in the UK, go and watch Sean's videos. He's done a couple of them, did a live stream, and he's done this one, which is the CAA is proposing some changes to the drone rules over there. And oh God, it's just as everywhere in the world's the same. It's all crap. Anyway, what they're suggesting is that, they want to bring in some new rules, including remote ID, including pay to fly effectively, because they want to have that ability to, you have to get it, just like the FAA's proposed network remote ID. The UK is introducing or proposing something similar, a hybrid system. It is absolutely crazy. And so go and have a look at the rules and things that they're planning to do if you live in the UK, and make a submission. I may do a video on this if people want me to. Tell me down in the comments if you want me to do my own video on this. But it's just a nightmare. We're all heading in the same direction because the skies apparently are filled with drone deliveries and air taxis. I don't know. Oh yeah, one of the most worrying aspects of this whole thing is they want to introduce drone regulations to improve privacy Well, I'm sorry, but every country in the world already has privacy rules and regulations. You don't need to double up. It's already against the law to invade people's privacy. So why do you need to make a special rule for drones? How you do it doesn't matter. If you're invading someone's privacy, it's against the law. So why do you need to have a special rule in the drone rule book to stop people from using drones to invade privacy? We don't have special rules that say, smartphones have these rules, because they can be used to invade privacy too. It's all rubbish. It's just rubbish, and we need to stand up to this. Now, of course, there will be a video coming up. I've been talking about the whole remote ID thing in the USA. Let's just think about that for a moment. Oh, no. Spectrum have announced their Sky ID remote ID module. It says Horizon and Spectrum are proud to announce the Sky ID remote identification module. This module will be available closer to the remote ID compliance date of September 16th, 2023. Sky ID will be under $100, but I bet you it won't be the $50 the FAA were claiming, and provides GPS features through Spectrum telemetry, but is also compatible with non-Spectrum radio systems as a standalone device. So here we go. Tell us basically nothing about it. How big is it? How much does it weigh? Nothing. So, I don't know. And one of the things I noticed the other day, I was at the airfield. I had my DLG, which is 260 grams. It has no room for a remote ID module inside the DLG because it's really, really push for space. Everything has to be super light with the DLG. So the inside, the pod doesn't have room. It's crammed full of a battery and a receiver and 2 servos. No room to put a remote ID device in the glider. So it'd have to be taped on the outside, which is drag. And as people who fly DLGs know, you want a very, very low drag thing so that you get maximum height out of the launch. But if you want to fly DLG legally outside of a freer, you're going to have to put a bulky remote ID device taped to the outside, which will destroy the performance of your model. And even worse, none of the remote ID systems I've seen to date will run from a 1S battery. They will say 2 to 3 to 4S or whatever, but minimum 2S. How are you going to comply with remote ID regulations if DLG is your thing when you can't get a remote ID broadcast module that'll work on your glider because it's either too big, too heavy, and it won't run on the 1S battery that a lot of DLG users have in their gliders? Oh, it's just so badly thought out. And also I see that the FAA have issued, I think, just over 200 freers. They've been accepting applications for months, and they've now acknowledged or issued 200 freers. Yet there are 2,600 AMA clubs, and they've got less than 5 weeks to get it finished. It's not good. It doesn't look good. It really does not look good. Designed to fail, perhaps. While on the subject of remote ID, this is Tim McKay's channel. Now I would say he's probably very pro AMA. He seems to be a dyed-in-the-wool, long-time AMA member. He's also flew full size and so forth. He has some interesting videos. Now, he's done a review here of the FMS Blue Jay Trainer model, and it is a ready-to-fly model. He says ARF, but it's got everything in the box. Let's listen to what he says.
It's a big box, not that it's a especially large airplane, but it includes things like a transmitter, batteries, even a battery and charger.
So it's got everything. It's got everything. There's nothing you need to buy to finish flying. It's got a whole lot. So under the definitions provided by the FAA, it is not a home-built model. And according to the FAA, what I read, since 2022, September 16th, all manufacturers of non-home built models like this, things that are ready to fly, including DJI drones, have had to have standard remote ID fitted out of the box. But this model doesn't. And this review was 9 days ago. So Tim bought this model. It's got everything. It's not a home built, but it didn't come with standard remote ID. So it is in violation of the FAA's rule on remote ID. So why are they doing this? Why are they allowed to do this? Again, designed to fail. The FAA seems to have no desire whatsoever to enforce the rule. That rule's been in effect for almost a year, and even if you consider that they didn't start saying they were going to enforce it until December, it's still well over 6 months that this rule has been in effect and supposedly being enforced, yet Tim goes out 9 days ago, buys this, it's ready to fly, and it doesn't have standard remote IDs. And the FAA are sitting on their fat backsides, drinking coffee, eating cookies. They don't care. So when it comes to remote ID, if you're worried that the 16th of September will come around and you won't have a module or you can't be bothered complying, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. It's obvious they are just not at all concerned with enforcing this. That certainly seems to be the case to date. So yeah, don't bust a gut. And because we'll have all those AMA sites that won't be freeers, and members probably not going to go out and buy their remote ID broadcast module, although insurance may not cover them if they don't have the remote ID broadcast. This will be interesting. There's a lot of interesting things coming up with remote ID. Now, the other thing is, remember, we have an initiative going. The community through this channel is setting up an initiative, and I have a video which I will be releasing pretty shortly for you to have a look at, and then we are going to go and put it out and present it to the media. People have said, why haven't you done it yet? Well, because timing is really crucial. Timing is crucial. Not only do we have to catch the right quiet point in the news cycle, but if we launch this too soon, then we can't use the one of the things I want to present is, here is a looming problem. It's almost upon us. We have very little time to act. We must act now. This is important. Time is critical, because if we release this very close to the launch, or 16th of September next month, then there becomes a time imperative. People have to act quickly, so the media will need to get onto this quickly. They can't just put it on the back burner and say, we'll do this later when things are quiet. They'll have to do it straight away, because the time imperative becomes important. And, our airports could be subject to spoofing within days. We need to act now, and that will get some real motion going in the news industry. That'll get them working hard on this, because it's a time-sensitive story. So we're going to do that closer to the deadline for remote ID, closer to the 16th of September which is next month. So stick with me on that one, but I will be rolling that out ahead of time for you to give me some feedback, because I may have to tweak it before we actually send it off to the media. It won't be put up as public. It'll be put up as unlisted, and I will do a community tab post or a video pointing you at it, because I don't want the media to get it too soon. There we go. So that's my bit of news so far. What a disarray this regulatory framework is in all over the world. Anyway, thank you for watching, and there'll be links and things down there by my man parts in the description if you want to go and look at some of this stuff. In the meantime, if you want to support my initiatives, you're welcome to join this channel as a member. Become a member, become part of the gang. So when you're watching the weekend flying videos, you can feel you're really part of the gang because you're a member of the channel. And if you want to support my activities to promote and protect the hobby, then I would highly recommend that you join my Patreon. Hang on a minute. While you're there, just don't go away. Coming up on RC Model Reviews will be a review of this. I have a new daily drive, I think. A new daily drive. This radio, fantastic. There's been a lot of radios come out recently. This is the first one that's got my juices flowing, I've got to say. And you'll see why when I do that review in the next couple of days on RC Model Reviews. Really worth looking at this radio. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I will catch you later.
Overregulation is like a tumor. It's killing our hobby. It must be terminated. Now!